the issue with the WNBA, and I'm going to repeat a mantra. It is the most unlikable league and culture in all of sports by far. And I'm talking from the players to some of the ownership, to all the media members, to the podcasters, to those who defend it. It's the most unlikable league in the whole wide world. And this is just another piece of evidence to support that statement.
What if the very league that claimed to uplift women was quietly tearing its brightest star down from the inside? What if the organization cashing in on your name, your face, your image, was also setting you up to fail the moment you stepped on the court? The WNBA believed it had struck gold with Caitlin Clark, a once-in-a-generation phenom who broke records, filled arenas, and turned women's basketball into must-see television. She wasn't just another rookie, she was a national headline, a walking empire, the future of the league. But instead of celebrating her, they targeted her. They let her get shoved, blindsided, and bruised. And when she turned down $1 million deal that could have changed her life, they didn't ask why. They labeled her difficult, entitled, problematic. Here's what they missed. That rejection wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated move, a quiet rebellion, a trap she didn't fall into, but set herself. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just say no to money, she said no to a broken system. She exposed the politics, the corruption, and the hostile culture buried beneath the WNBA's polished image. And in doing so, she ignited a fire that's now burning through the entire organization. From federal investigations to a player uprising no one saw coming.
Is another reason why Caitlin Clark needs to flee the WNBA. It's a political organization. They're not serious about business. That they don't care about traditional sports fans. It's a little cult that puts out little political statements and everybody wears vote t-shirts. They don't care about making money. They don't care really about building up this league and making it profitable. They're a charity. She needs to flee the WNBA and start her own league.
This wasn't about basketball anymore. This was war. And the monster they tried to break is the one tearing it all apart. From the moment Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, she was already carrying the weight of the league on her back. Before she ever played a single professional minute, she had already broken viewership records, sold out college arenas, and captured national attention in a way women's basketball hadn't seen in decades. She wasn't just the most hyped rookie in league history, she was the hope, the face, the ticket out of irrelevance. But instead of rallying around her, the WNBA did the unthinkable. They turned their savior into a threat. Rather than embracing her impact, players and media insiders treated her with suspicion. Veterans dismissed her success. Podcasters and pundits questioned whether she belonged. Fans who expected to see the league elevate her watched instead as she became the center of jealousy, aggression, and controversy. The league had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to evolve, to finally break into the mainstream by backing the star who was already bringing millions to the table. But instead of building around her, they let resentment fester. They let the culture around the league, already criticized as cliquey and political, define her as an outsider, not a leader, not a unifier, but a threat to the status quo. And just like that, the WNBA's savior became its biggest liability, but not because of anything she did wrong, because of everything she represented: power, popularity, disruption. And as we'll soon see, the league's failure to support her wouldn't just cost them their rising star, it would trigger the biggest crisis in WNBA history. When the offer hit the table, it wasn't just surprising, it was seismic. A brand new league called Unrivaled, co-founded by WNBA stars Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, approached Caitlin Clark with what they boldly called a Lionel Messi-style deal. It wasn't just a contract, it was an empire in a box, 8 to 10 weeks of basketball, over $1 million in guaranteed salary. And here's the kicker: equity, ownership, a real stake in the league's future. Compare that to her rookie salary in the WNBA, $76,000. That's not a typo. A player who draws sellout crowds, boosts national TV ratings overnight, and drives millions in merchandise sales was earning less than an entry-level marketing rep. The offer from Unrivaled wasn't just generous, it was liberating. Finally, someone was treating Caitlin Clark not like a replaceable athlete, but like an asset, a foundational piece, a woman worthy of power, not just a paycheck. Even Unrivaled's founders said the quiet part out loud. Caitlin Clark was being exploited. She was the biggest draw in the league by far, yet the WNBA was content to market her face on every screen while tossing her scraps behind the curtain. So naturally, everyone assumed she'd take the deal. Who wouldn't? More money, more respect, more control. This wasn't just an upgrade, it was an exit route from a league that seemed determined to use her without ever empowering her. But Caitlin Clark didn't bite, and that's what made what happened next so devastating for everyone who thought they understood her. When the news broke that Caitlin Clark had turned down the Unrivaled offer, the sports world froze. Nobody could believe it. Who walks away from $1 million? Who says no to equity in a league tailor-made for them? Who rejects a golden ticket out of a hostile environment? The media scrambled for answers. Some said she wanted more rest. Others claimed she was focused on her rookie season. A few argued that with all her endorsement money, she didn't need the extra cash. But none of them got it. None of them saw the bigger picture. Because this wasn't about money. It wasn't about minutes. And it definitely wasn't about loyalty to a league that barely acknowledged her value. This was about control. By rejecting the offer, Caitlin Clark flipped the narrative overnight. She wasn't just another athlete chasing a check. She became the player willing to sacrifice millions to prove a point. That point, the system is broken, and she refuses to be part of the cover-up. She didn't walk away from power, she created it. Her rejection was a declaration, a signal to the world that something far more serious was happening behind the scenes. She took what looked like a missed opportunity and turned it into a megaphone, blasting through the silence that had protected the WNBA's internal dysfunction for years. And the most brilliant part? She didn't have to say a word. That no spoke louder than any press conference, louder than any complaint. And the ripple effects? They were just getting started, because as soon as the spotlight shifted to why she walked away, someone else entered the scene, someone who could make the league's problems a lot bigger than sports. Caitlin Clark's rejection of the Unrivaled deal didn't just stir up sports media, it cracked open something much bigger. What seemed like a bold career move quickly escalated into a national controversy, and within days, the federal government stepped into the conversation. Former White House staffer Sean Mullen publicly called for a federal investigation into the WNBA, claiming Clark was operating in what he described as a textbook hostile work environment. Not just the typical grind of rookie life, but a deeper, more calculated pattern of mistreatment, and the evidence was hard to ignore. In her first season alone, Clark absorbed 6 flagrant fouls. She was hit, shoved, body checked, sometimes without the ball even in play. She missed 10 games due to injuries, yet the league issued no major fines, no real suspensions, and offered no public defense. For the player driving the league's highest ratings and biggest ticket sales, the silence was impossible to justify. Then the dam broke. Phoenix Mercury guard Sophie Cunningham said the quiet part out loud. On record, she admitted what fans and critics had been saying for months. The league was failing to protect its star, and this time, it wasn't just a fan or a reporter saying it. It was a peer, a competitor, someone inside the system confirming that something was deeply wrong. Federal investigators took notice. Subpoenas are now a real possibility. Internal league communications, private emails, behind-the-scenes conversations, everything is on the table. And if even a fraction of what's being whispered is true, the fallout could be catastrophic. But while the outside world began circling, a different kind of threat was building from within. Caitlin Clark didn't just shine a light on the league's problems, she gave others the courage to push back. If the cheap shots on the court raised eyebrows, the Olympic snub erased all doubt. Caitlin Clark wasn't just being targeted during games, she was being kept out of history. Despite shattering records, dominating headlines, and driving viewership like no one else in the sport, Clark was left off the Team USA Olympic roster. The move stunned fans. This wasn't about skill, this was about politics. Leaked details from veteran journalist Christine Brennan's upcoming book revealed the truth. Clark was never going to make the team. Her spot had already been sacrificed as a farewell gesture to Diana Taurasi, a legend of the game, but well past her prime. It wasn't about building the best team to represent the country, it was about protecting the old guard and silencing the new. And the excuse? Officials feared the backlash if Clark made the team but didn't get enough minutes. Think about that. Instead of letting her earn her place, they shut the door before she could walk through it because her popularity made them uncomfortable. When Clark's Indiana Fever coach, Christy Sides, told her the news, Clark didn't explode in anger. She didn't whine or complain. She simply said, "They woke a monster." It wasn't just a reaction, it was a warning. And it turned out to be a prophecy because what the league didn't realize was that by trying to humble her, they only proved her point. They exposed just how fragile the system really was, and how desperate they were to protect it. But the moment they tried to shut her out was the moment everything began to fall apart. The WNBA had spent years brushing off criticism with the same tired excuse: "We're still growing, just give us time." But when Caitlin Clark stepped onto the court, that excuse evaporated. The numbers didn't just improve, they exploded. Average viewership during her games hit 1.8 million. Arenas were packed to capacity. Teams were forced to move to larger venues just to handle demand. Merch sales went through the roof. For the first time in decades, the WNBA wasn't just a footnote in the sports section. It was dominating national headlines, all because of one player. But the moment she was sidelined, the illusion shattered. During the 10 games Caitlin Clark missed due to injuries, ratings collapsed. Average viewership fell by 55%, dropping from nearly 2 million viewers to just 847,000. That's not a dip, that's a nosedive. The kind of crash that terrifies advertisers, scares networks, and makes sponsors rethink their investments. The truth became undeniable. The WNBA wasn't growing because of smart marketing or team parity or league culture. It was growing because of Caitlin Clark. One player was carrying the entire weight of the league, and the numbers proved it. And yet, instead of building around her, the league treated her like a problem to manage. A cash machine to be milked, not protected, no security, no public support, no leadership stepping up when it mattered most. It wasn't just short-sighted, it was self-destructive. Because without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA wasn't just weaker, it was irrelevant, and her absence wasn't just felt in ticket sales or TV ratings. It sent a message the league never wanted to hear. You had your future in your hands, and you let it slip. While the league was scrambling to explain its collapsing ratings and growing backlash, something far more dangerous was building behind the scenes. And Caitlin Clark's rejection of the unrivaled deal didn't just ignite media headlines, it lit a fire inside the WNBA's own locker rooms. For years, players had quietly complained about low salaries, poor conditions, and being treated more like marketing tools than professionals. But the league always had the upper hand. The collective bargaining agreement was locked in until 2027, and with no real leverage, players were forced to wait until now. Clark's refusal to take the money changed everything. She didn't just walk away from $1 million payday. She exposed how broken the system really was. If the face of the league, the one bringing in sellout crowds and record-breaking viewership, was still being underpaid and overlooked, then what hope did the rest of the players have? Almost immediately, the WNBA Players Union made their move. They announced they were opting out of the current collective bargaining agreement 3 years early. One statement flipped the league's entire financial structure upside down. This wasn't a negotiation tactic, it was an ultimatum. Union President Nneka Ogwumike didn't hold back. She called it a defining moment and made it clear the era of waiting was over. The players were done being silent, done being used, and done playing by a rigged system. And now everything was on the table. Salaries, revenue splits, endorsement rights, media coverage, all of it. This wasn't a coincidence. It was coordinated. Clark gave the union the proof they needed, the public momentum they never had before. Her decision became their rallying cry, and now the league was under pressure from both sides. Federal investigators circling from the outside, and a player rebellion rising from within. And the worst part for the WNBA? The storm was just beginning. With federal pressure closing in and the players' union refusing to back down, the WNBA suddenly found itself in a position it had never experienced before, completely cornered. For years, the league operated like a protected bubble, niche, insulated, and free from real accountability. But that bubble just burst, and it all traced back to one player, Caitlin Clark. On one side, federal investigators were preparing to dig deep. Accusations of a hostile work environment, potential civil rights violations, and deliberate targeting of a player had triggered serious attention. If subpoenas go out, the league's most guarded secrets, emails, private conversations, internal policies, could be dragged into public view. And if those documents even hint at coordinated mistreatment, the fallout wouldn't just be embarrassing, it would be devastating. On the other side, the players' union was ready to go nuclear. By tearing up the collective bargaining agreement, they signaled they were no longer negotiating. They were preparing for war, and now the WNBA faced the kind of existential crisis it never planned for. Revenue sharing, salaries, endorsement splits, TV contracts, every financial thread holding the league together was being pulled at once. And stuck in the middle of it all was Caitlin Clark. The rookie they tried to humble was now holding more power than anyone in the organization's history. The same player they refused to protect, the one they left exposed on the court and overlooked at the Olympic table, had become the force unraveling the system from both ends. The panic behind closed doors was real. League executives had to make a choice. Do they admit failure, beg for forgiveness, and finally center their future around the one star keeping them relevant? Or do they double down, paint Clark as difficult, selfish, even dangerous, and hope the public turns on her before the league collapses first? But here's the problem with that second option. The numbers don't lie, and the world is watching. The WNBA wanted Caitlin Clark to save their league, but by underestimating her, they might have created the very storm that brings it all down. The WNBA thought they could control Caitlin Clark, that they could profit off her fame, box her into a broken system, and keep her quiet while the league cashed in. But they didn't just underestimate her, they empowered her. Clark's rejection of the unrivaled deal wasn't a missed opportunity. It was a calculated move that exposed everything the league wanted to hide. She didn't chase money, she used it to shine a spotlight on a system built to silence her. And now, that system is falling apart. Federal investigators are circling. The players' union is rising, and the one person they tried to humble is holding more power than anyone ever imagined. Caitlin Clark didn't just walk away, she flipped the script, because the monster they woke isn't going back to sleep. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more deep dives coming, and trust me, the next chapter in this story is just getting started.